Hey guys, Alton here. First off, I want to say thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. Now in today's video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of my selected lectures from my 8-hour Introduction to Windows Server 2016 for Beginners course. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. In this video, we're going to install Windows 10. So go ahead and open up VirtualBox if it's not already open and select Windows 10. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can mount that ISO file that we downloaded from Microsoft to install Windows 10. We can start this machine, it's going to ask us for it, or we can go into the settings. So let's go into the settings. So I have this selected, go to settings and go down to storage. And on storage, what you're going to notice here, let me go ahead and highlight both of these, is what you'll notice is that there is a Windows 10 VDI. That's our virtual hard drive that we created. This is a virtualized optical drive, so a CD/DVD drive. And you'll notice that it's empty. Well, we can actually mount that ISO file as a virtual DVD. So we can click on this. And over here, we can take this, and you'll notice there's a little bit of a drop down arrow. It's hard to see. Click that, and we can say choose virtual optical disk file. And so we can choose this virtual file by clicking here. And I have some older ISOs here, but I have the newer version of the Windows 10 that I just downloaded for this course here on my E drive as well. So I can select this and say open. And now it's going to be mounted here. And so what's going to happen, and let's say okay, is when we boot this up, it's going to boot up into that ISO file to install Windows 10. So let's go ahead and let's click start. And we'll let our Windows 10 machine start up. So let me bring this over here because that started up on the other screen. And let's go ahead and make this full screen while we're at it. Now, in terms of this process, while this is booting up, while this virtual machine is booting up for the first time, in terms of how fast or how slow this is really going to be dependent of your host machine. So when I install these on my older desktop machine, this can take 20, 30, 40 minutes. On my newer machine, it could take half that time. It really just depends on how fast your machine is. So click next here and click install now. And you'll notice it says startup or setup is starting. Go ahead and let it do its thing. And then once you get to the licensing terms, accept them and choose next. And now what we want to choose is custom because we're not upgrading from an older edition of Windows. We are installing Windows 10 from scratch. So we're going to say custom, and there's our virtual hard disk that we created. We're going to say next, and now it's going to start copying the Windows files, getting everything ready for installation, installing the features, installing updates, and then finishing up. So like I said, as this was starting, in terms of how long this takes really depends on your virtual machine. So just let this run, and it's going to run through this process, and then it's going to go through a reboot process. So I'm going to let this go ahead and run through this process, and then when it gets to the point where it's finishing up, I'll go ahead and I'll resume the video. Alright, so when it's done, it's going to prompt for restart, and if you don't press the button within 10 seconds, it's going to restart on its own. So you can press the button or just let it restart. When it's restarting, don't press anything because you don't want to boot back into the CD or DVD like it states. So what will happen is if you press something on your keyboard, it's going to load back into that ISO file that we mounted into. Now that we've installed the operating system, or we're in the process of installing it, we want this to continue, and we want it to boot up to the hard drive where it's going to continue setting up. So just let this continue to run. It's going to get the devices ready, the system ready. It should go through another reboot and then take us into some of the final setup settings. Now with Windows 10, with the Enterprise Edition on the Evaluation Center, if you haven't downloaded this before and you have an older edition of the ISO, The installation process in terms of the interface, it's a little different. So when I downloaded this and installed it in 2018, the interface was a little different once we get to the final settings. But all in all, in terms of getting to the operating system, it's pretty straightforward, pretty basic. It may be slightly different. And also when you're watching this video, when you're going to install it, if it does look slightly different, don't worry, it's still going to get you into Windows 10 Enterprise Edition. So we're just going to allow this to continue to run, and then when it prompts me for a user action or it gets ready to reboot, I'll go ahead and I'll resume the video. Alright, so the machine rebooted on its own. It didn't prompt me for some input, so when you see it reboot, don't worry, it's going to reboot, and then it's going to load us up into a welcome page within a couple of minutes, hopefully, where it's going to give us just a basic introduction. So again, we'll let it run, and once we get to that page, I'll go ahead and I'll resume the video. Alright, so eventually it'll get you to this welcome screen where if you have speakers hooked up and the drivers are set up, you will get a little bit of voice from Cortana. I don't on my virtual machine because the audio drivers aren't set up yet. So we gotta let this roll. It'll take you through a few different screens and then it'll eventually ask us for some information. So just let it run, and then when it tells us, we'll go ahead and we'll continue. All right, here we are. So it's going to start off with the region. I'm in the United States, so I'm going to choose yes for that. And then for the keyboard layout, I'm in the US, so again, I'm going to say yes. Again, based upon where you live, select the appropriate region and the layout. I'm not going to add a second layout for the keyboard, so I'm going to say skip. And go ahead and just continue and let it do its setup. So again, it's going to take some time with these virtual machines. They're a bit on the slower side than if we did this on an actual physical host machine and installed Windows 10. So give it a little bit of time, and I'm going to pause the video, and oh, well, I don't need to pause the video. So now what we want to do is we need to choose how we're going to sign in. We're not going to do a Microsoft account because we're not going to have these on our network where they have access to the internet all the time. So what we're going to choose is say domain join instead, because we're going to eventually add this to a domain. We're not going to do it right now, but eventually we're going to add it to a domain. So right now we're going to start with the local account. I'm just going to give it my first name, Alton. Choose next, and I'm going to give it a password. Give it a strong password because Microsoft always likes strong passwords. Choose next. Confirm my password. Choose next. And then it's going to ask us some security questions. So I'm going to go ahead and type in these security questions, click next, and then when I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and I'll resume the video. All right, so once you finish those 3 security questions, it's going to ask you if you want to use Cortana. I don't, so I'm going to say decline, and I'd recommend not having it enabled because everything that you have enabled is going to use system resources and we don't need Cortana. So we're going to say no for this as well. And then we're going to turn all of this off as well. Again, for the same reason, the more things that we have on and the more things that we're sharing with Microsoft, the more resources the system is going to use. So we're going to turn all of it off. And then we're going to say accept and then continue. So again, it says almost done, getting everything polished up. So I'm going to let this run and I'll resume the video in a minute. So just want to show you the screen. Again, it's going to take several minutes. Microsoft tells you that. So just let this run and let it take the time that it needs to finalize the setup. And then eventually what's going to happen is that it's going to boot you up into Windows 10. So just let it run, go take a break, go get a cup of coffee or whatever, come back 5-10 minutes, and it should be finished eventually. All right, and now we are done installing Windows 10 on our virtual machine, but we're not done with the video just yet. So before we end this video, and let me actually make this a little smaller so you can see the menu system at the top of the virtual machine. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to Devices, and on the Devices menu, choose this, Insert Guest Edition CD Image. So we're going to click there, and I'm going to make this a full screen again. Now what we did there is we mounted a VirtualBox Guest Editions virtual CD. So this is software that's going to make the interface a bit smoother, and the resizing of the windows, it'll allow the virtual machine to resize with them as well. So what we're going to do is click here on File Explorer, and once it opens up, and mine's a little bit laggy, which is perfectly fine. It may actually open twice because I clicked it twice. We want to go to this PC. And what you're going to notice when I click on this PC, for the CD drive, it's no longer our Windows 10 ISO file. It's now this VirtualBox Guest Editions. So we want to double click on that, and we want to install the Guest Editions. So we'll just simply choose the first one out of the three. We don't need to choose x86 or AMD 64. That's 32-bit and 64-bit. We can just simply choose the top one, and it'll auto select. So we double click that, hit yes, click next, click install. And then while it installs, it's going to give us a couple prompts, and we always want to choose install. Go ahead and let it continue with the installation, and reboot the system. So we're going to say finish. We're going to reboot the system. I'm going to go ahead and let this reboot, and then when Windows is finished rebooting back up, I'll go ahead and resume the video. All right, so it's booted back up, and just to get it into the screen where it shows your username, password, just click anywhere on the virtual machine and it'll take you to that screen. So go ahead and type in my password to log in, and we'll go ahead and log in with our account that we created. What you'll notice, and let me actually make this so it's not full screen, once everything is loaded, once the operating system has loaded up all the way, all the services are loaded, you'll notice that this resizes. And this is one of the nice features of VirtualBox, and it resizes everything. Now, again, we're not completely done with the video. There's one more thing that I want to do, and I want to take a snapshot of our virtual machine. So with VirtualBox, one of the nice things that you can do with it is you can take a snapshot of the system in time, and you can roll back to those snapshots. So in a test environment, that's always nice because we can play around with some settings, take a snapshot where we want to save them, make some more changes, and roll back to the other one if we want to revert back to it. So what we're going to do is click here on Machine on the top menu and say Take Snapshot. And what I'm going to do is say Clean Installation. With VBox editions, meaning VirtualBox editions. And if we want to put a description, we could put that in here, but we don't need to. We'll say OK, and it's going to show us a progress bar. It's going to take the snapshot. Now with snapshots, we can take them while the machine is on, or we can take them while the machine is off. My recommendation is to take them while the machine is on, because when you restore to it and load up to a saved snapshot, the machine's going to load into the machine while it's already started. If you take a snapshot when the machine is off, then it's going to make you boot the system up as if it was off, because you took the snapshot in an off state. It's just kind of a shortcut way to get the system up and running faster. But that's going to go ahead and conclude this video. In summary, we installed our Windows 10 operating system on our Windows 10 virtual machine. We installed the VirtualBox Guest Editions, and we took our initial snapshot of this machine. So in the next video, we're going to do the exact same process with Windows Server. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care. Well, I hope that you enjoyed today's video and you learned a lot from it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and also consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in taking this full course or just learning more about it, check out the video description down below, because I've included a link where you can learn more about the course and enroll into it if you'd like. So again, thanks for watching my video. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next video. Take care.